Good afternoon, everybody. Ooh. You all can go ahead and say hi and talk to people up until we start. We're going to just wait a few more minutes while everybody gets in.
Hi.
Everyone using their great Zoom etiquette.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks for doing this, Penelope.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you all think I'm doing this for you? Please. Okay. We'll do the 2-3 minute, the Zoom 3-minute official time start, right? It's always 3 minutes. I'm going to decide that it's 3 minutes after it's supposed to start. Because at 1 o'clock, you're like, oh, I have to get on the Zoom. And then it takes a minute to find the email and click on the link and make sure that everybody looks okay.
Hang with me for a while.
Jared, go ahead and mute everybody, but let them unmute themselves if they need to, if you would. Okay, it is 1:03. I'm going to get us started. And here we go. So good afternoon, everybody. I just want to introduce myself. My name is Penelope Cruz, and as of July 1st, I am the president of ACDA Eastern Region, and just really thrilled to be here and doing all of this. As you may have heard, if you came in a little bit earlier, these Zoominars, whatever we're calling them, over the next 2 days really came out of the needs that many of us have. Let me just say me, that I have in these unprecedented times. I'm sure this, a lot of us, this was not part of our training or education, as skilled as we are. It's really come out of the generosity and spirit of Ariane Harley Emerson and Robert Natter and Jared Berry, who are willing to share what they've already been able to accomplish and to help us all in our time of need. So I really thank them for being willing to share all of their work with us. So in just a moment, we'll start with Ariane, but later tonight at 7 o'clock, Robert Natter is going to be presenting on Coral Works, and then tomorrow at 1 o'clock, 24 hours from now, Jared and Ariane will be presenting on My Coral Coach. This Zoominar webinar will be recorded and will eventually be on our ACDA East YouTube channel once I figure that all out. While Ariane's presenting. You're going to be muted. If you have questions, put them in the chat, and Jared Berry, and I will be monitoring that chat. So let me introduce Ariane Harley Emerson, who has just made such tremendous, already had such a tremendous effect on everything that we are all doing. He's with the Choir School of Delaware and is the new National Standing Committee for ACDA on Diversity Initiatives. And I've also kind of drafted him to be on the Eastern Board as well in that same role. So Ariane, without further ado, please take it away.
Hi, everyone. I hope that you guys are all well. Thank you so much for joining us. What I love about this size group is that we're going to be able to get some really good work done today, and that we're going to be able to answer lots of questions that you might have. So all of that said, I'm just going to share my screen here and we're going to get started. And please do know that if you have questions, feel free to use the chat box. Feel free to ask them. You're more than welcome to ask questions. I want to make sure that you are having all of your needs met today. And if you have follow-up questions, you, of course, can email me, and I will make sure that we get that all to you. Are you guys able to see okay? Let me just make sure everything is able to see all right. Great. So today, this session the title of this session is From Paper to PDF to XML to MIDI and beyond. So we're really going to be talking about all of these different things, and we're going to break down what this actually means in just a moment. So as Penelope said, my name's Ariane. I'm the director at the Choir School of Delaware. And I also am chairing diversity initiatives. And if you ever want to get in contact with me, you can, of course, send me an email. So a lot of folks have been asking questions, and here are just a couple of things that I've been hearing from you and other colleagues. And yes, I will make sure that the slide deck is shared with everyone. I have so much anxiety about the upcoming school year. Please tell me it's all going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Things are definitely going to look differently than they have in the past. And we're going to talk about that today. But once we equip ourselves with a few core skills, we'll be able to use these transferable skills in a lot of different areas. And if you are going to all of these Zoominars, this is really kind of the first part of it, that first skill that would be taught, and you would develop that through the rest of the series over the next 2 days. Another thing that I have heard is there has to be an easier way. There just has to be. There are some ways that are easier and some that are more complex. But the truth is, most of these ways, it's not about easy or hard. It's about familiar and unfamiliar. So what we're going to do today, my goal is to familiarize you with a couple of strategies, some new software, some new programs and platforms to handle some of your needs for the upcoming year, so that you can still do the thing that you love most: teaching music, making music with others, musicking, etc. Great. So here are some questions that you might have and that we're going to answer today. Is it possible for me to digitize my sheet music? I've got sheet music, it's in the library. Can I digitize that in some way and use that in a meaningful way? Yes. I have a PDF of music from a publisher. What should I do with it? We'll talk about what to do with that today. What is an XML file? You might have seen that today in the title. What is this XML file? We'll talk about that. How do I manipulate music files? That's something that we will also talk about today, how to manipulate them and make them what we want. Can I make practice or part tapes? Yes, you can. We'll talk about that as well. I want to do a virtual choir. Can I make a click track? Absolutely, you can do all of that as well. We will also talk about if this is something that really the average person is able to do. and how much you can customize all of this. So there's a continuum that we're going to be working on today, starting with paper, sheet music, going to PDF, going to an XML, a music notation file, and then once we have a music notation file, what can we actually do with it? So we're going to talk about all of those different things today on a continuum. And as we are having this discussion, please feel free to ask questions and I'll get to them as best as I can. I know that Jared and Penelope will help with making sure that I know if there are questions in the chat box that I might miss. So I just want to make sure that folks know that please, please, please do ask your questions. So first, we start with paper, right? So you're going to have some sheet music. You're going to have something like this. You're going to have an octavo, and you're going to want to know, what do I do with this octavo that I have? So first, before you start figuring out what you're going to do, you need to ask yourselves a couple of questions. First, is the music, do you actually have it in your library, right? And do you have enough copies for everyone? Did you purchase it? In this digital format, I just want to make sure that everyone is clear that you still have to purchase all of the scores that you have. So if you're digitizing music and you're uploading it to My Choral Coach or sending it out to your choirs, anything like that, you still need to make sure that you are purchasing the music legally, all right? Publishers are also hurting during this time of COVID, and they are not having as much music purchased from them. And we have to realize that this choral profession is an ecosystem, and we need to all do our part. And I say that sincerely because I know that our publishers have also been very generous in allowing us to stream things and scan things, and have been very generous during this time. And so when I was putting this together, I thought, man, you know what? We also need to do our part as well. And we need to make sure that we're legally acquiring the music and that we have enough copies for each of the singers that we have who are involved in our choirs, our projects, etc. So if you own the music, you can go through this process. If you have enough, you need to have a license for everyone in your choir if it's an e-download. So let's say it's a piece you downloaded off of J.W. Pepper or a composer's website. Make sure you have the proper amount for the number of singers that you have. Remember this, if you're doing a virtual choir and you've only bought the minimum 10 copies, but you have 400 people in the video, you are going to get cut, right? Because it's all on video. So remember, please do that. And all of those things are wonderful. But if you do have the sheet music and you do have it legally, you can make it, of course, a PDF. So that's the first thing you should do. Next, we're going to talk about what you're going to do once to create this PDF. So a PDF is just a scan, right? So you're just going to be scanning your music that you have. So if I were scanning this piece, there are a few things that I want to do. First, I want to make sure that I have a high quality PDF. By that, if you're scanning this at home on your home scanner or a phone or an iPad using an app, they are all going to have varying qualities, right? You want to always make sure you're on the highest quality setting whenever you are scanning your music, all right? So that's a really important part that it's going to impact how well you're able to digitize your music, is the quality of the PDF. So that's very, very important. Some of the things you want to look out for is you want to make sure that there are no lines of your music cut off, just as if you were scanning it or making a photo copy of it for your accompanist. I know that seems like a basic thing that folks should know, but it is something that I've seen that has been an issue. You want to make sure that you don't have any bent pages, have a clean copy. If you are trying to use a scan of a scan of a scan of a photocopy that was in your friend's library from 30 years ago, that might not also work as well, particularly when it gets all of those little black dots. You know, when there are particles that get on the glass and there are all those little black dots that you have on your photocopies, that makes this whole process much more difficult. And essentially, we are using a similar kind of technology as facial recognition software when we are going to digitize these files. So if you have these dots all over your music, it's going to be more difficult for that software to be able to recognize what is notation and what is just a copy of a copy of a copy from your best friend's library that you got yesterday scanned to you from her best friend. Right? So you want to definitely make sure that you are aware of that, particularly any dots that are happening around or near the staff. Okay? If they're on the outsides of it, it's not great, but any dots near the staff are going to be problematic. So make sure you have a clean PDF. And then the other thing you want to make sure is that you have a clean score. So if you just went online to find a piece of music and it's got writing and markings all over it, those markings, that highlighting, all of that stuff like that is going to make it more difficult for you to get a clean scan of that and for you to upload that into software, which is going to make your life a little bit more challenging than it needs to be. And we want to make sure it's easy. So spend the time to get a good, clean, high quality PDF. I cannot tell you how important that, that piece of the puzzle is, to just have a good PDF. Next, what we're going to do is, once we have a PDF, we're going to scan that PDF using software to convert it to an XML file. So what is an XML file? Let's break that down. An XML file is a generic music notation software file. It is basically MIDI, and it understands coding, MIDI coded, and it is translating that into notation. That's all it is. It's a generic file. Many different kinds of software, notation softwares can open an XML file. They all can open an XML file, but that's the file that is the best for you to be using, is a generic XML file, okay? So that's what, when we refer to an XML, that's what we are referring to. So you've got your piece of sheet music. You've got your PDF, your clean PDF of everything that you want to do. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to use software to convert that PDF into an XML file, all right? So that's what we're going to do next. So there are a couple of software options for you to use, and these are at varying price points, okay? So you can use ScanScore, that's one, that's my favorite one personally. SmartScore, Music XML, Music to XML, that's also really wonderful. MuseScore, which is a free notation software, has this built into it where you are able to upload a PDF. It does do an okay job with it, but remember, it's open source software, free software, and so you get what you pay for, right? So that is really, really an important thing for you to realize, is that you are getting what you pay for. If you're just using a free scanner or something like that, that it might not be as accurate in its transcription for you. Another one is called PlayScore. Sibelius also has this feature in it as well. And I think that Finale also does have the ability to convert a PDF to an XML file and to import it into Finale. I'm actually not a Finale user myself, but I'm pretty sure that they have an ability to do that with that. So those are your different options. So the first thing that you want to do is choose one of these options for you. You can do your research. Some of them you can use with your cell phone, which is great, and you can take a picture of them. Some of them are not apps, but you download them onto your computer, and they're like computer programs and applications. I always recommend using a computer program or application if you can, and if you have access to a high quality scanner. So many photocopiers already scan music, that is what I would be using first. And then I would download something like ScanScore or SmartScore Music to XML, because you're going to get a better scan from using a flatbed surface, and one that you can wipe down and all that jazz, rather than essentially taking a picture of it. Because when you're using your phone, it's not bad, and cameras obviously have really improved over the years, and they can be high quality and large file sizes and all that stuff like that. But you do sometimes have more junk that comes up on a dots and things like that. So that's why I'm giving you all of these different options so that you can choose which is the best for you, okay? A ScanScore is fairly expensive, as is SmartScore Music to XML. So you're talking about the $200 range. So it's definitely not cheap, but it's definitely doable, so that you can have a good product. So I see a question here: if Noteflight has the capability to scan a score from a PDF. I am not aware that you can just upload a PDF itself into Noteflight. That could be a feature. I'm not aware that it is. I've not heard of folks using that feature. It could exist. I'm not sure, to be honest with you. And then I see there's a question here about describing and showing the process of scanning using ScanScore. So I can certainly describe that to you. And perhaps if we have time at the end, I can show you from download process. And I actually have this installed on another computer. It's a program that you would purchase online. You download you download the program, you install it, do all that jazz. And then once you have a PDF scanned, you already have had the PDF scanned, right? Whether you're using a flatbed copier or your phone or an app on your phone to scan it. And then it becomes one file and it's a simple upload. So in ScanScore, it's literally like, choose the file that you would like, and you choose that file, and that's it. That's literally all you have to do. That's why it's super easy. It took me maybe, I don't know, maybe it took me 5 to 10 minutes to do about 15 or 20 scores. So you can do a large volume at one time. It's a very fast process for you to be able to do that. So there's a question here. So does any photocopier with scanning capability work? Yes. So if it scans for you to a PDF file, you can absolutely use that scanner. So the follow-up is, once you scan with the copier, do you open the scanned copy with your converting software? Exactly. Yes. So once you have that PDF of all your pages, you simply open up whatever software you have, whether that's ScanScore, UScore, PlayScore, an app on your phone, whatever you're using, you would choose that file from wherever you have it saved. Okay, great. So next is, I'm going to go over e-downloads. E-downloads are great. So that's one of the things I've been looking for: high quality PDFs right from the get-go. You don't have to scan them. You don't have to worry about anything. It usually has larger fonts, because what is happening is the Octavo score is smaller than an 8.5 by 11, whereas your e-downloads are already formatted for 8.5 by 11. So there's more space on the score, so things are spaced out more. I'm going to talk about why that is important later in this presentation. But if there is a way for you to get an e-download through JW Pepper, through a composer's website, through a publisher, I recommend doing that during this time, because one, you don't have to go anywhere, no one has to mail anything. It's friendly, eco-friendly, because you can decide to print it later and you don't have people driving all over the world to deliver to you. So I really love it. The other thing you can do is you can use the Coral Public Domain Library, CPDL. I love things that are free, right? So CPDL and IMSLP are your friends, and they are wonderful. So CPDL and IMSLP will already have PDFs. IMSLP can be problematic for old scores particularly if we're talking about the old box scores, you know, the ones that are a little hard to see on IMSLP and are using clefs that look like they're hand-drawn and things like that. You know, you see a lot of that on the IMSLP. Those pieces don't work as well to be scanned, but often someone has uploaded a modern edition for you to be able to use already. CPDL, the scores tend to already be in a really clean PDFs already. I see a question, what is IMSLP? IMSLP is the International Music Publishing something library, Petrucci Library. I cannot remember all that it stands for anymore. But IMSLP is a wonderful site that has both instrumental and choral music that you can access, and they are all in the public domain. So everything on this site is free. It's all the things that are out of the copyright. You can get a PDF, you can get parts. It's a really wonderful resource. They will have many editions or arrangements of a piece if it's an older piece. It's really a wonderful resource to be able to use. It's all free, right? So it's all free. So CPDL, IMSLP, use them. They're really wonderful. And particularly for CPDL, CPDL already has a lot of XML files already. So if you're thinking that you're going to be doing something that's in the public domain, I would strongly encourage you to go to IMSLP or CPDL to see if that piece is already there. So I'm going to take a little detour and actually show you IMSLP and CPDL. So because I see there were some questions about that there, and what I'm going to do is actually pull it up and show you exactly what I'm talking about in case you're looking for that. So give me just a moment here. I'm just going to pull this up for you. And I'm going to share my screen so you can see this. Thank you for your questions. I appreciate it. And make sure it helps you to make this a valuable experience for you. So it's the International Petrucci Music Library, right? So that's what IMSLP is. It's everything that's in the public domain. So let's say I was looking for a piece of music. Let's say I wanted to do, and I know this is in here, BWV 142, the Bach Cano cantata. It's there. Here you can see that there are some suggested recordings here that you can access to hear it. You can see that there's sheet music here. This is what I'm talking about when I say a bad score, like the facsimile scores. No bueno, will not be good for you to use in this process. It will make you very frustrated. Not good at all. Some of these older scores here, I will do this, yes, okay. So if you're using an older score, you can, I'm just gonna scroll a little bit until the actual pages load. Great. So if you're using something that's in the public domain, and you can see here it's a little blurry, it's a little harder to see, right? Some of that's because it's in this view, but a lot of that is the engraving already. Is already that way. And take a look at just how hard it is to see these lines, how some of the lines are hard to see and they're not clearly defined. So this is a PDF that if you had no other choice, you could use it and it would work, but it wouldn't be ideal. Take a look at where I'm circling now. You can see how the F line and that top part there is almost non-existent in places. It's fine for us to look at on a screen, but it's not going to be great and fine when you were to upload this into ScanScore or MuseScore or something like that. And what you want to do instead is look for the cleaner version of the score, like this is a cleaner version of that score that you might use. You might even find something that's super clean, like, you can do it. Alrighty. You could find a more modern edition that someone has put into software already. I'm just gonna give this a moment. The pages are just loading. But here you can see how clean this PDF is. This is a clean PDF, right? You can see how everything is very easy to read. The words are easy to read. Everything is clean. So if you were to download something from IMSLP, you'd want to find this clean one. It might not be a critical edition, right? But it is a clean score. When we're talking about a CPDL, the Coral Public Domain Library is a wonderful place. You can get tons of free music here. Let's just look up for now Elgar. He's one of my favorites. Can't go wrong with Elgar. So we are going to just pull, why don't we see if his Ave Verum is here. It really, oh, here, great, wonderful, Ave Verum is here. When you're on CPDL, there are some icons that you're going to see with all of these different editions. So each of these bullet points represent a different edition on CPDL. And there's a legend on the right here that is going to tell you what these icons mean. So you can see that's a little PDF icon, a MIDI icon, a music XML icon, a Finale or Sibelius file, right? So you want to be looking for, if there's a PDF and you're like, oh, it only comes in a PDF, like this edition here that I'm circling. Let's say I wanted to use this one. I could download this PDF and put it through ScanScore or some other software so that I could use that edition. The other thing I could do is say, you know what? I don't care about the edition. I just want the notes on the page and I'll deal with it later. Then you can download the XML file, which is this little green circle one. And you will already have it in Notation software as an open source XML file. That's ideal. If you're in the public domain, just get that XML file and then you can skip all the scanning, skip the PDF, skip all of that sort of a thing. So if you're someone that is feeling a little overwhelmed with everything that is happening and you just want to try some things out and see how you're going to work with your choir, I might recommend just going to CPDL and downloading an XML file that is already in music notation software and ready to go. And you can manipulate it and do all sorts of fun things that we haven't yet discussed. Okay, so that is what that process is. I want to just double check to make sure we don't have any questions. Great. Wonderful. That is what CPDL is. That is what IMSLP is. Wonderful resources. I highly encourage them. For folks who feel like you're not really comfortable with technology, I would absolutely recommend that you start with CPDL and get yourself an already existing file within the public domain. There is so much great repertoire here. If you're looking to just kind of dip your toe in the water and take it easy and then really kind of scaffold your learning and your choir's learning, it's a really great way to begin. So that's what that is. So back to where we were, friends. Just gonna wait for this to load. You can do it. Great. So once you have the PDF and you've scanned it or you've gone to download your XML file from CPDL, what you're going to do is you're going to end up with an actual file, right? And then that file is going to be something that you can manipulate in many different ways, okay? And I'm going to show you an example of going from PDF, what we need to do once we have that file. I'm going to show you and walk you through that whole process so that you can see what that looks like. But just to go over the process, once you have the XML, you want to ensure that you check pitches and rhythms. Typically, rhythms tend to be pretty good, but pitches sometimes might need to be adjusted. You know, it's not, the software is not necessarily perfect. particularly with accidentals. You might need to add in an accidental or courtesy accidental or something like that. So that's the first layer that you want to address. Then you want to, if you're like playing with the sounds in your XML, and let me just back up. What are you opening this XML in? You're going to open this XML in your music notation software. Okay, so that's MuseScore, Finale, Sibelius, those types of things are what you would be using. I see a question here about, can I walk you through how to find an XML software? Yeah, I'll just kind of skip to that slide now. So, can you walk us through how to find an application for the XML once you download it? Great, yes. So music notation softwares include Notion 6, Finale, Sibelius, MuseScore, LilyPonds. There's a ton. There's a lot out there on the market. I just put a few here. Notion 6 is what I will be using, and you will see me using that today. All of these softwares are similar. Notion 6 is one that is not used as often in the United States, but it was acquired by a company based in the US a few years ago, but it's just like Finale or Sibelius or things like that. I use Notion 6 exclusively because there's a wonderful iPad application that I can write on my iPad with my Apple Pen, and it makes it a lot easier for me to edit and to write. I can write music using Notion 6. If you are editing XML files, it's a lot easier than kind of clicking and dragging and all of that. You can just strike through a note and that will delete it. And then you can just draw in the correction or if there's a missing accidental. That's why I like using Notion 6. It's in the same price range. It's a little bit cheaper perhaps than Finale, but it's a fairly expensive program to use. We're talking about $200 to $300 range to download. Finale has been on the market forever. If you just Google Finale, and you can download that software. Sibelius switched recently. It used to be like a program that you would buy a CD or download it onto your computer or install it from a CD. And now it's subscription based. So that means you're going to pay yearly for it, for the service there. So a lot of people like that because they can decide that, you know what, I don't really want to spend all this money to edit a few scores. I really want to do something just for this year and not sink the investment, or at least not right away. Then Sibelius might be a great option for you, and you can kind of pay for it for just that 1 year time frame. And they may or may not have shorter. It could be a month. I'm not sure if they do a month or not. And then there's MuseScore. MuseScore is free, and so it's on this list. MuseScore is pretty great. It's not quite as robust as Finale and Notion and Sibelius, but it's wonderful, and it's open source, so it's free. So I definitely think it's a really great option. It's a really wonderful option, and you'll be able to do everything that we do today that you see me doing in MuseScore. My Choral Coach, which is a program that ACDA is in partnership with Match My Sound is developing, recommends MuseScore to use to match with my Choral Coach. I use Notion 6 and I've had no issues with using my Choral Coach. I know others that are using Finale or Sibelius, but I did want you to know that it is recommended for that software if you're intending to use my Choral Coach. There is a recommendation from the software maker to use MuseScore files. Okay. So once you have downloaded your program, you can literally Google any of these, you download it, you install it, and then you're ready to begin manipulating your XML file. So, and in that XML file, you're going to check it for pitches and rhythms. You're going to be able to change the sounds, and I'm going to show you of these different things. You are going to want to use piano if you're going to, let's say, go to my Choral Coach or some other software. because it's a basic sound. And with these softwares, whether using Finale, Sibelius, and MuseScore, they are all, the instrument sounds are proprietary. So that means that you might have this great sounding orchestra for your choir with beautiful strings, and then you upload it to some other program and it sounds terrible. And so you're like, oh my God, that sounds like the worst MIDI I've ever heard in my life. It sounded great when I was listening to it on MuseScore or Finale or Sibelius. That's a normal thing and is going to happen because those sound patches are proprietary. So they're made with those specific types of softwares, notation softwares in mind, okay? So to give you an example, Notion 6, which I use, all of the sound samples come from the London Symphony Orchestra, right? And so they created their own sound samples, and whenever I try to upload something like, I don't know, vibraphone number 7, vibraphone number 7 doesn't sound like a beautiful vibraphone. It just sounds like someone banging a wall when I upload it into my Choral Coach. Why? Because my Choral Coach does not have that same sound patch. So when you're creating these, I generally recommend, if you're going to go to some other program from an XML, to just use basic piano sounds, okay? So in the XML, you're going to check pitches and rhythms. You're going to use piano sounds. You're going to align the text. Sometimes the text, you might upload the score and the text might not be under the notes quite the right way. You can fix all of that. You want to create spaces between the staves. I'm going to show you all of this in just a moment. There are different settings that you can use in notation software. And the more space that you create between the staves, the better it is when you try to use this file in something like a Noteflight or a My Choral Coach or things like that. It gives more space, it's easier to read, it's just gonna save you a lot of time. So I highly recommend that just create as much space in the staves as you can. When you are manipulating the files, you're able to choose the tempo or the tempi if there are multiple in the piece. Make sure you're thoughtfully and accurately assigning those tempi, right? Because let's say, I really didn't want it to slow down there. That's really too early. Well, if that's in the notation software, then it's going to keep playing that back for you. And if you're trying to use it to make a click track for virtual choir, it's always going to be that way. You upload it into Noteflight or My Choral Coach or some other program, it's always you're gonna have to live with whatever that tempo is unless you manipulate it. You're gonna have to live with whatever you establish. And the biggest thing that I learned from trial and error is if you have an SATB to easy part, or if you have an SA piece, or anything that has multiple lines on one, you're going to create a new line for that altogether. Okay, that's a really important piece. Doesn't matter if you're only just wanting to just get, a score into Finale or get a score into Sibelius and you have no other intention of doing anything else with it. No, then it doesn't really matter as much. But knowing why most of you are here today, I can tell you that most of you are going to want to do things like virtual choir, create click tracks, assignments for students, all those sorts of things. So instead of having soprano 1 and soprano 2 on one line, you should break them up. If you have a piece that is on a grand staff, you're going to want to break that up. You're going to want to take that grand staff and make it 4. If it's SATB, take those 2 and make it 4. All right, so that's a really important little piece. So what I'm going to show you guys now is I'm going to open up music notation software and show you what it looks like once you have a file, a scan from ScanScore, and you need to manipulate this XML file, okay? So let me just pull up. I'm going to use as an example, Benjamin Britten's Fancy, okay? So I'm going to just pull this up and show this to you. Great. Alrighty. So, you guys are now should be able to see what, oh, I have to share my screen then. Screen sharing has failed to start. Please try again later. Okay, well, let me see why I'm getting that error. Huh. So Jared, I've never seen that before that says that you can't screen share.
You should have it.
Let me try this again. So here we go. Let's see. It will allow me to share screen now. It did. It just didn't want me to show you exactly how it works for some reason. So what happens is this is Notion. This is the score as it came in from ScanScore. So before we were on, you know, this went through ScanScore. ScanScore did its thing, and it now has spit it out for me. So it looks okay, right? It doesn't look terrible. I've got a lot of random words in places that don't make sense. Like you can see here, this copyright sign is in a weird place and a couple of things like that. But on the whole, everything looks, besides some words in some weird places, it looks pretty good, right? So this is nearly ready to go, and all I would do is editing. So with some of these words that are in places that don't make sense, I'm going to make this larger for you. I can just click on these words here. I can say, you know, do I really need them? Do I want them? I just want to delete them. I don't want them there at all. They're gone. These red notes here are telling me that something is wrong. So this is in 2/4 time, and this shows that I have an extra beat. So I'm going to say, why is there an extra beat? That really doesn't make sense. I think that's an error. And I would check my score that I have and see what it is and say, oh, well, you know, that was really just a photocopy dot, and I don't really, you know, need that. And I just delete it. I click on it and I hit the delete button, right? And then I look and I see this rest is red. What's going on with that rest? Oh, there are too many beats in this bar. It didn't get that eighth rest the right way. What I need to do is add an eighth rest. And so then I could go in and I could delete that and then replace it with an eighth rest, right? So those are the sorts of things that we would do, and that's the kind of cleanup that we might want to do here. We would check in to make sure all of the accidentals make sense. Here was an example that this part of the score should be played more warmly. Should it be on the bottom? No. All right. Do I want it there? Maybe, maybe not. I can delete it. I can move it. I can get rid of it, whatever. So you're going to just go in and you're just going to edit the score. There's all of the notation software. It's pretty simple with anything like this. You're just going to go through, fix all the wrong notes, make sure all of the words are there. Sometimes words will be missing and wrong because like this should be a ding here, but it says DMG instead. So all I'm going to do is go in and make that ding, right? And fix what that is. There's nothing over here. I need to add lyrics to that little section. So all I'm going to do is go and add the correct ding, right? And now I've got the words that are correct there. I might see that these this pianissimo really should be above the staff. So I'm just going to move that, right? Great, wonderful. These words here don't really need to be here. I'm going to delete those, right? And so I would do all of these sorts of things, and I would clean this all up. Now this is public B London low. What in the world is that? That's probably from the copyright information that was at the bottom of the score, you know, and the small letters. We're just gonna get rid of that. No big deal. Poof, be gone. Like, I don't need you in my life. Out. So we're just cleaning up all of those little things. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. We're just going to make those edits, change pitches, make sure all the rhythms are there. Do whatever it is that you need to do to get this looking the way that it needs to be. But you can see there was not much work that we had to do, and every notation software program is going to, in some color, let you know that there are too many beats in a measure or something's wrong, and then you can rebeam it. You can, like this is, they clearly didn't get the bar line in this measure, so you know, all I need to do is add a bar line. Great, now the red's gone away. Like, it's like, I find this to be very relaxing. Music editing for me, it's very, very relaxing. But again, I was a comp major, so you know, I like this kind of pain and suffering. You know, we can get rid of all of these sorts of things, get rid of random words, you know, whatever we want to do, give it a title, get rid of these things here, whatever, so on and so forth. We would get this all fixed up and we get it all cleaned up. There are ways to change the sounds of everything. So let's just listen to what this file sounds like, okay? So. Great, right? So everything's in piano sounds, it's great. If not, I could change that, it wouldn't be a big deal. I might want to do things like, say I want one sound to be louder than the other, and the piano's too loud and the voices aren't loud enough. Is it really pianissimo that I need here? Why is the piano so loud? Well, it's because actually the piano part doesn't have pianissimo written in, right? So I would add that pianissimo part in the piano. I'll just do that while I'm on the line with you guys right now. So just to play this from the beginning, this is what it sounded like before I add that pianissimo. Right? Pretty loud on the piano part. But now if I add that pianissimo, that should also be in the score as well. I can even give it a triple P if I'm really feeling like it's just too loud for what I want. I want it to be even quieter. Right? A lot quieter, right? So listen through the file, let your ears guide you. You'll hear wrong notes, all of those things like that. Get them all fixed, get them all cleaned up. That's what you want to do. When I talk about making sure you assign a tempo, I always assign tempi very specifically. So I might say, you know what? I'm not going to chance it. I'm not just going to set a tempo. I'm going to tell it exactly the tempo that I want this to be at. So every software has some version of what you're going to see here. It usually looks like a quarter equals and a question sign, something like that. And I'm going to put it there, and Q just means quarter equals, and then I can say maybe 90 was too, let's say 120, you know, and then I can go back and see. Okay, great, that's much better. That's the tempo that I want. But, you know, later in the piece, I really want to change this tempo again. All right, what am I going to do? I'm going to, I want to slow it down. I really think it's too fast. So you would establish, okay, well, at this measure, it's really going to be at 80 beats per minute at that part. Great. But it's not just going to go from 120 to 180. We're probably going to have some sort of retardando in there. Tell the software where you want it to start. Perhaps we decide, let's do it here. And we're going to retardando and tell it where we want it to retard to how slow, 80. Why? Because we want it to be a smooth transition to this bar here, this fourth bar here. And then when we go to the beginning, we have right? And so now we actually have a transition that makes a little bit of sense, all right? So that's what I mean by you want to be very specific about what you are doing with the editing pieces here in the file. This is the piece that takes, this is the part that will take the most amount of time for you to be able to do, is editing the scores that you have. That is what is going to take the most amount of time. Okay, any questions on what you need to do to actually edit the score? It's going to look a little bit differently in MuseScore. It's going to look a little bit differently in everything that you do, but it's all going to be a very similar process for doing this work. So in any program, once you have an XML file, all you're going to do is, oh great, I scanned my music using Scan Score. Oh great, I have an XML now. I'm going to open up Notion, Finale, Sibelius, MuseScore. I'm going to go to File. I'm going to go to Import or Open. It'll be a little bit different for different software. I'm going to go to wherever my XML was saved. Here it says Benjamin Britten's Fancy. I click Open, and then it would open for you in that notation software. All right, and then you're ready to edit. Hit Save, and then you have an XML file. Okay. I see there are some questions in the question box.
Ariane, can you go,
yes.
Ariane, can you go to the question was, is there a simple way to separate parts out to different stapes?
Yes. What I do is I do a copy and paste. So like if, let's say this is not, I just use this piece because it was only one voice and it was super simple. But let's say I did want to break out multiple parts. Let's say at the end of this piece, for instance, there are some chords. And let's say I wanted to create part tapes and I wanted each of these voices, I would clean all of this up at the end. I wanted to have 3 different stapes, right? What I would do is I would go here, let me get my Zoom little box out of my corner. I would say, oh, I want a new voice in here, and I would literally just add one. Like, let's say I'm going to add a new vocal line. Great. I'm going to add a new voice line. It's there. Wonderful. Great. Then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click it. I'm just going to delete all these things I added here just because I want a really clean look for you. So you just copy and paste. Click and drag over it, you know, just like you're going to highlight something, you know, if you were in a Word document. Then highlight the part where you want it to go. All right, and you can, whoops, let's just get it there. Great. And I'm going to go to right click and I'm going to hit paste, or you can use the keyboard commands. Let me paste that in the actual correct measure this time. All right, and that's what I would do. It's that fast. And let's say this part was split and it was in harmony. I would say, okay, and it would be a C here, it would be a D, gray, it would be an E, gray, it would be an F, right? And now we would have, right? And now I have harmony to what's going on there. It didn't take me very long to do it. It took me seconds to do it. I just literally copied and pasted it and then just manipulated the pitches there. If the pitches were already there for you, let's say like this section, let's say for this measure here, let's say in these measures, which we did not clean up, we wanted to clean this little section up and we wanted to paste this down here. Oops, let's do this. You can do it, you can do it. My notation software is mad at me because I've got Zoom open and all of these different things open, and so my computer's lagging a little bit. So what I would do to create this new voice part, I'm like, this is the soprano 2 part, great. So I'm going to delete that note. I'm going to click the top one. I'm going to delete that top note there. I'm going to delete the bottom note there. I'm going to delete the top note, right? I'm going to delete the top note, great, boom. And I just delete it just like that. And now I have the soprano 2 part on a line by itself. Then I would, of course, add the next line, copy and paste, no big deal. And I would eventually, delete that, like that, right? All of this would be great, right? And now I've got the soprano one and I've got the soprano two parts, right? That easy for you to be able to do that. Okay, so I see some questions here about kind of the beyond that you want to be. Yep.
Ariane, I think you're okay. I'm trying to answer things as we go along. I'll let you know
Great.
if there's anything you need to go back to.
Sounds great. So we'll keep moving here. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. You would essentially do this process and edit the file as you want it to be, and you would continue on with that. So I'm just going to switch my screen back to the presentation here so you can see the next little bit of what you do. But the XML editing is the bulk of the time that it's going to take you to do what you need to do. That's the real chore, the real process here. Great. So we talked about that. So beyond. So what can you do after you have a clean XML file? You can create MIDI practice tapes. From your software, you'll be able to export a part. You can say, I want to export just the soprano part. I want to export just the alto part. I want to export any of these one parts as just sheet music, as a MIDI file, whatever. It's a very simple file, export, choose the part, and you're done. All of them work exactly the same way. It's some sort of feature that's like that, right? And you can choose it to be an MP3 file, a MIDI file, or whatever. No matter what file format, it's going to play the MIDI sound, okay? So you can decide to export all voice parts so that they can hear the MIDI for all voice parts. You can do just the soprano part, you can do a combination of voices, anything like that. You can create a click track, okay? From this software as well. Let's say you're like, oh, I don't want to go into audio software like Logic or Audacity or anything. I want to create a click track right from here. That's super easy to do. To get that click, that metronome click on every single thing, just like I showed you how to add a new voice part, you would add a voice part for, you would add a woodblock part, and you would just put a quarter note on every beat. That's it. And then it would play a woodblock through everything. You've got a perfect click track. If you have tempi changes, I always recommend using subdivision. So instead of using quarter notes in 4/4 time, and something is slowing down in the measure or two before that transition, start using eighth notes so it's easy for your singers to hear that subdivision and to hear that slowing down together, right? It's just like subdividing when conducting, right? Same thing. So a super easy way for you to create a woodblock. A click track is to just add a woodblock and just copy paste all quarter notes in it. It'll take you 30 seconds and you've got a perfect click track. You can also take this XML file that you've created and you can upload it to My Choral Coach. You can upload it to Noteflight. You can upload it to Smart Music. So if you already use Smart Music and that's a tool that you use in your classroom or within your choral community for assignments, it can be uploaded to Noteflight. You can also use Smart Music if you're looking to do that. So there are a lot of options of what you can do with this, and you can use notation software as a rehearsal aid in and of itself, right? So you can use MuseScore or Sibelius or Notion or whatever as a rehearsal tool. Why I do this and why I will continue to do this moving forward is it eliminates scrolling issues. I can adjust the size of the music, right? Because you have that green line, so you don't have to worry about scrolling. It'll do it for you automatically. You can adjust the size of the music. Like you guys saw, I just made the music larger for you guys to see and smaller for you guys to see, so you can make it easy to see on a computer for your singers. You can slow down the tempo at any time for complex or difficult passages. You can change the sound of a voice part to highlight it. You might say, oh, they're not hearing it in the piano texture right now. I'm going to change it to be a violin or a flute or fill in the blank so that those singers can better hear that part. You can isolate parts. You can say, I want to play this file, but I only want the soprano parts. Or the tenors are really struggling. Okay, great tenors, only your part is going to play right now. Those are all things that you can do. You would do a simple screen share in Zoom, just like I did just now, and you would run the rehearsal from that notation software. So that's another strategy, and one that I've been using to actively rehearse people. It's great for sectionals. You can say, great, you know, student, section leader, person, download MuseScore, and I'm going to, during this rehearsal, so we can move a little bit more quickly, we're going to go into breakout rooms, and you're going to open up MuseScore section leader, and you're going to take your section through, right? Super easy, super easy. They open up MuseScore, they hit play, everyone's singing there. Your section leader is like, okay, guys, let's make sure we slow this down, make sure we have this, blah, 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 whatever. Super easy to do it. You can also sync a recording to your score. That's advanced. I'm not going to go over that today. But if you wanted to, if you created a click track and you sang to your click track, you could then take that recording that you made and play it through your notation software. So not only can they see the score, it's scrolling for them at a nice pace, but they can also hear you or your section leader singing the piece. That's one of the things that I really love about it. And you can create a lot of learning videos. I'll show you some example of some that you can make. I made all of these right through Notion 6, and just, it was super easy. And you can also create assignments for people. And my choral coach, Smart Music, all those programs like that. It's super easy for you to be able to do that. Super easy for you to make part tapes. Super easy for you to make videos. So I'm going to just show you now one of those, some videos here that I uploaded for the choir school. So, and this was using notation software. All I did in this one is this is using Notion. It was a piece that we were doing, and I conducted it. I put a little conducting box on the score, which is another feature. It's more advanced, but you can always do a follow-up. And I was able to make a super easy video right in there where they could sing along, they could see me conducting, everything right there. So this is what it looks like for the singer. And it's gonna lag a little bit on your end because I'm sharing my screen through streaming on YouTube, but it would not do that on your singer's end. I gave them a bar, 2 bars. Right? Great. And that's all that that you need to be able to do, and your singers have that as a resource to be able to follow along with you conducting them. They can use this to record their virtual choir pieces because they're looking at the music, they're seeing you conduct, so you're shaping the music, they're having the MIDI as a backtrack. If you want them to be listening to voices instead of MIDI, that is possible. Like I said, it's definitely more advanced. Call me if you're trying to do that. But that is also another thing that you can do. And I can show, if you want to see what that process looks like at some other time, just give me a call and I'd be happy to show you some videos I made and how I went through that process of making that possible. So those are all the, yep.
Aaron, can you really quickly just repeat again how you got from your XML to this video?
Yeah, sure.
Or is
Everything.
that part of my choral coach or whatever?
I'm sorry, what was the last part there?
Or or did you do this in my choral, or how did you get, just basically how did you get to this video from XML? I missed that jump.
Sure. I did this right in the notation software that I did. All that's happening is I just zoomed in on the screen, scrolling. It's just playing silly MIDI instruments. I chose strings because I wanted them to hear strings. And then I separately recorded myself conducting while following the XML file. And all I did is there's a feature in Notion where I could import a video. So I just imported the video into Notion 6. It was already synced for me. There was nothing else I had to do. You could also, if you're using software that's not Notion 6, you could just do a screen capture. You can export, like from Sibelius or MuseScore, your score with the scrolling green line. You can export that as a MP4, which is a video file. You can put it into iMovie or Adobe or whatever, and then you can decide to put your conducting video in the corner. That's the other way to do it if you're not using Notion 6. It's pretty simple. This video probably took me 20 or 30 minutes to do overall. It was basically exporting the video of that XML file. Then it was me recording myself and then saying, yeah, I want that video in the corner. You know, and I didn't really have any choices of where else it went. I had to choose that corner, but it's fine for all of that. So those are the different things that you can do. You can do a lot. I know this is a lot in this one session, but if you're able to manipulate an XML file, you are able to do so much. It's going to make your virtual choirs a much easier process. You can use the notation software for rehearsals. You can use it right there, and you can do sectionals. You can play from it during rehearsals. It's all wonderful. An easy way to do that. You can create fancy videos like this for your choir. All of these sorts of things you can do in notation software once you have that file. So it is a really useful thing to have. So I'm just going to open it up to questions or clarifications that people might have on any of this that you can do. That you might have, you know, let me know how you're feeling. Are you feeling like, great, I can do this? Are you feeling overwhelmed? Let me know how you are feeling. Great, I think everyone is feeling pretty good about things here. I'll coordinate with Penelope to make sure that everyone has the slide deck so that they can, so you can do this at home. What I would recommend doing is reviewing the video of this, and then you can pause me and then do your own thing, hit play, pause me, and then keep going with it through the process.
So the video will, like I said, we'll figure out, we'll get all the videos from these 3 Zoominars will be on that, on the YouTube website, and you can go to the ACDA East website where you register to find that in resources. And I think maybe, Ariane, if it's okay with you, maybe we'll just see if we can host your slide stack on that, in that resource page as well. So then you can go ahead and those will all be in the same place rather than us trying to send you all huge stacks of things. Jared, does that seem like doable? Of course, Jared doesn't do our webmaster thing, but we'll ask. He'll make things. He'll make Mark Boyle, our webmaster, will make things happen. So yes, at this point, if you need to be a little bit more free flowing, please unmute yourself and. Right, because Ariane, we're done with the formal presentation.
Yeah, that's it. You can ask me anything about the process. I did a lot of this. The choir school mounted a full concert of solo repertoire, of videos, of all of this. So I'm telling you from firsthand experience that this XML is really powerful. There are a lot of great tools. Everything is even getting better at this time. So if you have questions about process for rehearsing virtually, I can answer those. If you have technical questions, if you want suggestions for software, want to know what I love, I don't get anything from Notion or Microcoach or anything. I just really have loved these tools. So I'm happy to answer any of those questions that you might have. So you can just unmute yourself and ask the question or put it in the box.
And also I think Rob is still out there. Rob is presenting on ChoralWorks this evening. Rob, if there's anything that you want to kind of preview or talk a little bit about ChoralWorks to kind of set people up to that, go ahead and do that as well.
Yeah, sure, of course. I hope you all will come back tonight to hear about CoralWorks. Ariane, that was a fabulous presentation. So good. And I think people will be able to use those skills. You can use very similar skills to be successful with CoralWorks too. And I think you'll feel like CoralWorks can be a great combination with some of the other tools that Ariane has been talking about. So come check it out. 7 o'clock.
Erin, sorry,
Yeah.
sorry. Erin, can you drop your email in the chat?
Yes. I will do that.
I've got a question.
Sure.
When I got the link for this, it said it's a recurring Zoom. So do we just click on the same link for tonight's presentation
Correct. It's the same link for tonight.
and for tomorrow as well?
Yep.
Thanks.
I see there's a question. When choirs practice virtually and there is a lag in Zoom, will it work if they use earbuds? So everything in Zoom happens in proportion, right? So if you are using notation software, like I was doing, it technically was not all at the same time, but you experienced it in time and in rhythm. So you can't hear the other singer singing. You can't hear your singer singing, right? Because they're all on mute, just like you guys were on mute. But you guys were able to hear. If you wanted to sing from home, obviously you could have done that today and followed along. And that's the process that you would be using in rehearsal. There are some other softwares that you can use for synchronous singing, but none of them are yet easy to use. You need to be wired in, and there's still a lot of issues with those softwares. So I can't yet recommend the heartache that it would recommend them because of the heartache that it would cause you. But what I can say is I have been able to put up multiple concerts at this point using having people muted and in rehearsals. It requires more rehearsal planning. It requires you to be very thoughtful about what you're doing. And it requires something that we should already have been doing before as conductors already, which is we need to not be responding to what choirs are necessarily doing, right? Because that's generally what we do is we hear something's wrong and we fix it, but we need to be anticipating what's going to be the issue with the choir. Okay, we see there's a 7th coming up. Obviously that's going to be a challenge. Let me deal with that issue. And before we get there, I'm going to break that down and make sure that they have that interval. And then we're going to do it a couple times. We're going to drill it, and then we're going to move on. So that is how you would approach that. But it will, for the singer, it will be in rhythm, in time for them because everyone is on mute and they'll be able to hear and sing with you and all that. Yeah, Mariella.
Hey, Ariane, your ensemble sang at the ACDA in Rochester, and they were wonderful, really. So I just can't say enough great things about you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All your stuff works.
Great. I don't think that we have any other questions. So we're done a little bit early, which is great and wonderful. I'll hang out on the Zoom for a little bit in case anyone has a question that they want to ask, and otherwise, I think we're good.
Yep. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Hang in there. It's all the best that we can do. I'll stay on for a few more minutes, too, as well. And we'll see you maybe tonight or tomorrow. And bring friends. This is a great free resource. You know, as Ariane said earlier, you get what you pay for. But I think in these cases, you're getting a lot more than sometimes what we pay for, right? So thank you again. And bring friends and people that you know are panicking, because we all are. But, you know, thank you again. Yay, Ariane.